You will want to have your nonfiction book in front of you as you watch this lesson today. As we know from reflecting on our essential question, how do readers approach nonfiction, we have a big job as readers when we read nonfiction. We approach it in an entirely different way than we do fiction books. Our job as readers is to gather as much information as we can. Thank goodness, authors of nonfiction break down their text in such a way that it is easier for us to understand. This is where our essential question, what do all pieces of nonfiction literature have in common, comes in handy. Nonfiction literature has many distinguishing features. Authors add something called text features, which are items that draw our attention to them because they stand out from the rest of the text. If we only read the main text and ignore the text features, we won't gain a full understanding of what the author is trying to tell us. The same is true if we only read the text features and ignore the main text. Our job is to pay attention to both the main text and the text features. When we look at the TrueFlix book North America, we can identify some of those text features, starting with the table of contents. A table of contents is usually found at the beginning of a nonfiction book and tells the reader the topics that are included in the book, as well as the page those topics can be found on. I know I can turn to page 17 to find out about wildlife in North America. Do you have a table of contents in your nonfiction book? How many topics will be covered in your book? Nonfiction books are often filled with beautiful photographs, such as the one we see on page 6 of the Grand Canyon. Photographs and pictures are two of the most common text features seen in nonfiction books. They help the reader visualize what the author is explaining. Often, photographs and pictures have captions, like the one seen here on page 6, that explain what the photograph or picture is showing. Do you see any photographs or pictures with captions in your nonfiction book? Nonfiction books include headings such as the one we see on page 7, Continent of Contrast. As good readers, we should read this heading and start asking questions or making predictions like, why is North America a continent of contrast? Or, I predict that the author is going to point out many of the contrasting landscapes of North America. Look at a heading in your nonfiction book. What is a question or a prediction that you have? When I turn to page 8, as a careful reader, I notice the heading on this page, the far north, is in a different color and is smaller than the heading on the first page. That signals to me that it is probably a different kind of text feature called a subheading, which will expand on the topic, a continent of contrast. Does your nonfiction book include subheadings? On page 9, we see a map of North America. Maps are another common text feature authors use to show their readers the area being written about. The map on page 9 also zooms in on a portion of the larger map, showing the reader a more detailed look of one region on the map. Look for a map in your nonfiction book. Nonfiction books are full of new vocabulary. Authors almost always include a text feature called bold print. Bold print makes important words stand out. Bold print, or highlighted text, as we see on page 10, is a way of saying to readers, look at me, I'm an important word that you will want to remember. Do you see any bold or highlighted words in your nonfiction book? As we continue to look through the book North America, we see many of the same text features repeated. Have you noticed the text feature we see on page 17? we see larger blue print with an arrow that explains a picture. This text feature might be called a pull-out box, which offers more information. It might also be thought of as a caption. Pull-out boxes can take on many different looks. Sometimes they are actually in a box, sometimes they're in the shape of an oval, a circle, or a cloud. They all serve the same purpose. They provide information the author wanted the reader to be sure to notice. On page 28 and 29, we see another common text feature known as a timeline. Timelines help the reader see important events that the author is writing about in the main text. They help us understand the amount of time between events and which events are important to remember. Is there a timeline in your nonfiction book? Nonfiction authors often include additional interesting facts at the end of their books, as we see on page 43, where the author is providing interesting statistics about North America. Did you know Lake Superior was our largest lake? You can see additional resources about North America on pages 44 and 45. On page 46, we see a glossary, or important words, which is another common text feature in nonfiction books. Glossaries include those bold or highlighted words with their definitions that we saw throughout the book. On page 47, we see the text feature in Index, which helps readers revisit topics by listing them alphabetically according to page numbers. Finally, on page 48, we see the text feature about the author. This text feature is used to let readers know a little bit about the author and to verify that they are a credible source for the information provided in the book. What kinds of text features are included at the end of your book?